Right, well today we've got the Ford Roadmaster 500, which also stems from 1982, and it's the same chassis as the Cybernet Beta 1000. It's looking a bit dinted and rusty, and we'll see what we can do with it. I've taken the screws out of the case, so that's a start. He did actually have them all for once. It doesn't look like it's a mess inside. Customer needs a microphone, so I've prepared, it's a bit like that Blue Peter program, isn't it? Here's one I prepared earlier. That's showing my age, isn't it? Remembering things like that. And they'll need a power lead. So there we have a nice new power lead. And we'll see what happens. What we don't have is any service manual for any of the radios that use the Cybernet 135 chassis. What we do have is a circuit diagram. And this was for the Cybernet Beta 2000, so it's got a few more things on it than this particular set, and that has to be taken into consideration and when we're working things out. I have a chart here which I've made some time ago as to what does what and in what order, having studied the circuit at length some time ago. So we'll take the lids off. They'll be resprayed, I'm absolutely sure of that. I'll look at what the customer asked, but I think this will be what they'll be asking for. Oh, it's come straight on, and conveniently it's come on channel 20. It's a nice green display, and it's a bar graph on these type of radios. Right, I'll go with the transmit through with you on this. I can't go through the VCO with you because we don't have a service manual. If I had a radio in where the VCO needed setting, I'd have to look at the similar model, probably the Cybernet 134, at what components do what, and kind of work out a method of doing it. I don't see many of these, I have to be honest. Probably seen 3 in the last 30 years. I've never had to set the VCO. So the VCO coil is T1, which is there. The VCO trimmer capacitor is TC1, so I would suspect that one of them does the transmit and one of them does the receive. There'll be a test point somewhere, but we leave it well alone. It's got wax in, it's never been moved, and as long as it works, it's going to stay that way. So when we've got full service manuals, we always check the VCO, but on this case it's a bit difficult. The first thing I'll do is it's transmitting. I've just checked that it's doing about 2 watts, and we'll just make sure that it's on frequency. Should be 27.79125, and with CT2 it's just a little tiny bit high. Now they drop with age, so this clearly has had service in the past, and that's set that to 27.79126, which is fine. So we'll go through tune-up of the transmitter with you, and then we'll do another video for the tune-up of the receiver. Right, the first coil for transmitter is T2, followed by T3, and then T4. So we'll see what we can coax out of it. What we'll just do is set this to low power, the little switches at the back. It's sometimes easier to do these at low power, get a much more positive reading. That's T2, Move on to T3. Switch back to that range. There we go. And then T4. And we've now got 3.5 watts. Well, that's an improvement. I'll just pause the video while we'll just see if there's any other adjustments. Okay, I've repeated those adjustments 3 times and we now have a full 4 watts on the high power setting. So we'll switch it to the low power switching, little switch at the back there, and that should be 400 milliwatts. Let's have a look what we've got. Oh dear, we've got 500 milliwatts. So low power should be RV5, and RV5 lurks in that corner there. It's a matter of getting a trimmer in small enough to get between the screen plate there and the power connector. That was so finicky I had to adjust it off camera. Okay, well, having set the high-low power switch in the correct position, so that was RV5, which is in the corner just there. What we'll now do is we'll go for the S meter and the RF meter in this case. Now it's just labelled 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't have the normal type of arrangement. So when we key it up, we should be reading 4 because we're in the 4 watt mode. I will be in a moment. And that's reading over the top. RV4 is the preset near the front of the case. There's 2. There's RV4, which is the meter TX, and RV3 next to it, which is meter RX. So we'll just do the TX one. What I've done is to balance that so that we've got, on the low power setting, we've got 1 light showing, and on the high power setting, we've got all 4 showing. The next thing to do is the transmitted deviation. That's RV2. I'll get the oscillator out. See what we've got there. We're reading. I'll switch the other oscilloscope so you can see that. It's right-hand oscilloscope, and we're looking at the deviation meter here on the test set. It should be, just get my shoulder out of the way, it should be reading about halfway, which is 2.5 of the maximum deviation. So we'll just bring that up. Telling you anything, I was in the wrong range there. It's still low, and that brings us up to 2.5. Just do the whistle test and just make sure it doesn't go over the top. It does just go over the top. I'll just back that off a fraction. Check it with the oscillator again. And then check it with the whistle test. Still just over the top. That's it, there we go. Wallow. Doesn't go over the 2.5. Wallow, 1, 2 testing. That's excellent. And that concludes the transmitter on the Ford Roadmaster 500. We'll switch that back to normal. Our next video will deal with the receiver on this rig.